Welcome to the Best You podcast, where we explore the journey of inner peace, harmony, and joy that comes from living authentically. Every week, we will dive into transformative conversations that describe both the way you can create behavioral change for yourself and how to create the conditions that promote peace, harmony, and joy around you. Whether you're seeking balance, deeper relationships, or a spark of inspiration, you're in the right place. In today's episode, we're going to discuss why we get our hot buttons pushed and why we have them in the first place. So it'll give you tips and tools so that you can better manage these things going forward and bring more harmony and joy into your life. So let's get started. Hey, Scott, good to see you.
Great to see you, Sanna, and I'm excited to share people how hot buttons can be actually make your life better if you have the right perspective.
Yes, they are actually our teachers, is what I like to say about them. Most challenging things in my life. And I used to say it tongue in cheek, but now I really mean it. They're really wonderful teachers. So let's start with a little bit of background about why do we have hot buttons. So it starts because as we are in our formative years, we might experience some fear or trauma, and it might be a major trauma like a bad accident or we saw something horrific. Or it might be a small trauma like we didn't feel safe or we felt alone or that we wouldn't be taken care of. And so we would then adopt a behavior that would protect us. And when we found something that would work, then we would have this belief and then a habit that would keep us safe. So initially, it's helpful because otherwise we wouldn't have adopted that belief and habit. But as we get older, if that belief and habit is not flexible enough to change with our changing circumstances, then it becomes sort of rigid and set in stone. And it's sort of like if all you have is a hammer type thing, that I will just take out the same tool no matter what the situation is. And if you think back to the last time you had a hot button pushed or you were triggered, did it tend to go well? And when I say have your hot button pushed, that might be a fight, flight, or freeze event. So, did it give you the outcome you wanted? So, what's your experience with hot buttons, Scott?
Well, I think generally not good. I think you said it right. I think most of our hot buttons were developed when we were young, and we're even unaware that they're existing. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, something happens, and because of our habits or because of something that we did many years ago to protect ourselves, we have this reaction, and again, almost always it's not a good thing. And I think probably the first step is to be aware. Be aware that something has happened, that something has touched your hot button. What is that hot button? I mean, could you name your hot buttons? I mean, that's the first step. And the next step is what does it do? How does it make you feel? How do you respond? What are your habits? What are your instincts? What are your reactions? I just think that most people just go through their life with these hot buttons that they developed when they were young, and they aren't even realizing that they exist or that they're impacting their lives. What they do when it happens. I mean, they just think it's a natural part of life, but the reality of it is, hot buttons do exist, but they are not a natural way of life. You can uh, choose to deal with them differently, and I think that's what this episode's all about.
Yep, you don't have to accept them the way they are in your life. You can evolve them. And what I've also learned is that you can't change somebody else's hot button. Like that's for them to do. Like the only thing I have any control over is my own hot button. So I mentioned on a previous episode that my hot button tends to be what's called deprivation schema. So it's my belief, it's a deep belief that I'm not going to get what I need. So when people act disrespectfully to me and I'm going to use air quotes for that because I would often see disrespect when it wasn't there or barely there, barely detectable. When I perceive disrespect, then I might fight or freeze or fly, and none of those things actually helped create more respect in my life. It actually tended to have the opposite effect. Oh, she's a hothead, or she just, you know, clams up. She doesn't say anything, or she runs away. She leaves. I mean, that is not respect generating behavior. As you said, Scott, when I became aware of this and challenged my belief, like, well, I think that's just my hot button acting up, or maybe they are objectively being more disrespectful than is necessary. I'm like, so what? I'm probably coming here with my own attitude, so I'm probably causing it to some degree. So when I came to that realization, then it helped me come in in a smoother, more approachable way, and I would end up getting a better outcome. So I was telling Scott earlier that I was really proud of myself because I recently handled the situation, and people went out of their way to be helpful to me, and I was really proud of myself because I just know that the old Sana would have, gotten up in arms and um, made people want to get off the phone as quickly as possible with me. Do you have your own story about, like, what is your hot button, Scott? Like, could you
Yeah,
share a story?
yeah, I think we all have hot buttons. I will tell you, one of my hot buttons is traffic. And it's interesting. When I was younger, I just didn't like to sit in traffic. And if there was traffic, I would do everything I could to weave around, cut people off. I would get stressed and frustrated. I'd look at my watch. It would really have a negative impact on my day. And as I grew older and I became aware of it, again, you can't control traffic. It's going to happen, but you can control the way you respond to it. And what's interesting is, first off, leave a little bit earlier. Give yourself some extra time. You never know if there's going to be traffic, so I tend to leave earlier. I tend to leave some extra time, and maybe I'll arrive earlier somewhere else. But I tend to have more time, so I'm not going to be late because of traffic. But the other thing is, I actually have convinced myself that traffic is a good thing, if you can believe that. I actually now, first off, I don't want to be weaving around because that's not safe. That's how you create an accident. I don't want to be cutting people off. That's not safe, but it also, has a negative impact on them. So I don't want to be that type of person. But the even better thing, the way I've actually convinced my brain that traffic is a good thing, it's a good button, is that I actually have more time to do some other things. That maybe I'll go listen to a book on tape. Maybe I'll go call somebody on my cell phone. Maybe I'll just look around this what's outside my car and take in the scenery and the sights. But I've now convinced my brain that it's actually some added extra time to do something kind of joyful that I wouldn't have done. And it's interesting again how powerful your mind is. But being aware of the hot button is the first step, and then trying to do something with that to make it a much better experience is the opportunity we all have.
That's a beautiful strategy of reframing. I love that. So you reclaimed, that 20, 30, 60-minute interval from being so stressful and flooding your system with stress hormones and raising your blood pressure, which is terrible for your health, right? And your ability to function. Because when you go into work, then you're going to be all stressed out and not at your best. And you turned it into a pleasurable, joyful experience. That's just huge. I love it. So, Scott, I'm just curious. What was it mostly about? Your fear that you'd be late? Is that why it was so stressful?
I think probably, yeah. I mean, I think almost, always the traffic is gonna delay us, and we were heading somewhere, and I think that was probably the biggest thing. But I think the other thing was just simply Um, I don't know, just I, a lot of people are impatient, and I think that was probably another one of my hot buttons is just whether it's traffic or standing in line at an amusement park or whatever. I mean, I think many people are just impatient, and I think we all have the opportunity to simply say, hey. If I'm standing in line at an amusement park, that's just more time to talk with the person I'm with. I'm gonna go, look around, see, it's just, but I think there's probably multiple reasons why we have our hot buttons, and I think, the question is, how are we going to reframe them? I like that word you use. We can reframe just about everything in our life if we want to.
Yeah, and I would invite some curiosity about the belief behind that. If I'm late or if I don't get through this quickly and efficiently, then what bad thing will happen? So I think that's an interesting question that you may or may not have an answer for. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's really, I think, at the core. Like, why do you have this hot button? Like, really, what's it going to do? And is it really so bad? What's going to happen? Again, if you're late for a meeting, is it the end of the world? If you're gonna an amusement park, if you're not going to get to ride one or two more rides, is that such a big deal?
It's like FOMO. Something
Yes.
bad will happen if I don't capture all of it, if I don't
Yeah.
participate in all of it. Yeah.
Yes, fear of missing out on something. I think that's exactly right. And I think the other thing with hot buttons is it's interesting. People can say things to you, and I think those are also big ways of setting off your hot buttons. And um and I think, over the years I've realized, like you said, if someone's disrespected it would set you off. I now have convinced myself that, for the most part, when someone says something to me, first off, I'm not going to respond in any way, but hopefully thoughtfully. So I'm trying to take the time to stay calm and respond appropriately. But the other thing is, I have said to myself, if they're saying something mean to me or perceived mean, first off, they may not be intending to be mean. They may not know that's my hot button. And if they are being mean, maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe I can do something to make their day better. I mean, it's just interesting. Every time something is happening to me, I'm trying my best now to always ask myself, like, what's really happening here? And it's just amazing when you're calm and you're truly in tune with what's going on with your mind and your body, and just kind of like, what's going on here? Like, where have I seen this before? How am I going to react? And you're just in the moment, like, how can I truly make good out of this? You can make good out of almost every situation, but the trick is being aware again of your hot buttons and how you respond.
Yeah, that's really important. Um, and it can also be valuable to get deeper under the issue and like what's really at stake for me here on a deep level. And so the book I love is called Emotional Alchemy by Tara Bennett Goldman. And she talks about these fear beliefs, which are called schemas. So they're basically mental shortcuts for this belief and then habit that we develop. The habit could be the fight, flight, or freeze. So she talks about either our core wounds and fears, and they include things like the fear of abandonment, fe- fear that we're not going to get what we want. It's called deprivation, as I mentioned. There's one called subjugation, that what I want and need or think is not as important as other people's needs and beliefs. There's mistrust, that we just have a sense that we cannot trust others, we cannot trust the world, or unlivability. I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. And then these express in how we interact with the larger world, the outer world. So um, the schemas she has identified include vulnerability, like I'm not safe. I might have one called entitlement. Well, I'm entitled to better treatment. I'm entitled to have life this way or that way. There's also exclusion. I don't fit in. I don't belong. Failure. I'm a failure. What I do is not good enough. I'm not going to succeed, so why try? And then perfectionism. I have to be perfect. I have to do everything perfectly. And Scott and I illustrated with our examples that our belief these fear beliefs actually create, they're self-fulfilling prophecies. They create the consequence that we're trying to avoid. And so what we really want is to have a good experience, like get everything done and seen that you had intended for yourself, and for me to have respect and be treated well. And so when we challenge that habit and that belief, then we can actually create the outcome that we really want. So we have talked in the explanatory show, the first episode of this series, about um, the adverse event, being late or being treated with disrespect, and that's the A. The B is the behavior. So either our belief that I need to be perfect, or I'm not going to get what I need, or I'm going to miss out, leading to behaviors that actually cause the outcome. Or we could say, we could be present and have our self-awareness and say, I have this belief, it doesn't get me what I want. What can I believe instead? What can I do instead? And then we can change the consequences. So this is how we can own our hot buttons instead of the hot buttons owning us. And we can create the world. We could see the world differently. Like Scott just felt so much more peaceful during his commute. I experience customer service representatives as wonderful, delightful people. So we're the main ones who determine how we experience the world, and we can make a better choice than what habits we picked up when we were traumatized as kids. You know, when you say it that way, it doesn't seem like such a stretch of the imagination. But I think until we spell it out, that it just makes absolute sense that we don't have to be controlled by these beliefs that just can bring us unhappiness and create conflict around us.
Yeah, and I want to just simply reinforce some of what Sana just talked about, which is hot buttons are, I think, really just they're shortcuts to protect us. And and if you can just be aware that it's, it's literally, something potentially is going bad, and this button has been pushed, and now you've had this reaction. I mean, that's why you, as a child, created this, and you don't have to use a shortcut. And in fact, if you're mindful and aware, there's a much better way to deal with the situation. And in fact, most of the time you don't even need to protect yourself. But it's
Right.
it's these things have been created, and they're wired into you from a young age, and and it's in your control to fix them, and encourage you to do so.
So I really feel it's powerful when we identify the belief that's the habit that drives the habit, like, I'm not gonna get what I need. And so there's another book that I love, and we also discussed this in our courses on the Foundation for Family and Community Healing platform. But there's one called Who Would You Be Without Your Story? So if my belief is I'm not gonna get what I need, I can challenge that belief. So in the case of the customer service rep, I might go, well, I can decide what I notice. Well, how is this person being respectful to me? Well, they haven't hung up on me. They haven't put me on hold for 30 minutes. They're still trying to be polite and helpful. But if I'm noticing just what I think they're not going to do, or they're not being so friendly, like, I'm going to just sense disrespect. But if I choose to notice how they are being respectful, assuming it doesn't get out of hand, um, then I'll have a better experience. And the other thing I can do is go, well, how am I being disrespectful? I hardly ever say things that are just mean spirited, but I can sometimes come in with this, like a chip on my shoulder, like, "Arr, how are you helping me now?" Or something like that. And that in and of itself can feel disrespectful and aggressive to people. And so by being accountable for the thing that I'm blaming on others and myself, like, remember that saying, when you point a finger at somebody else, you have one at them and three back at you. So it's being responsible and accountable for my own belief that I am creating this problem that I'm trying to avoid. So I find that this exercise is really humbling, It's really humbling because every time I go and I complain about somebody, I go, okay, three fingers pointing at me. What am I doing here? You know, um, when it becomes, again, I think we talked about at the beginning, like these hot buttons are our teachers. There are teachers to show us how we are in the world, and that we get to choose whether we're choosing a path of peace and love and harmony and a chance for everybody to be their best selves, or if we're dredging up the crap and blaming it on somebody else.
I think that's so good. And customer service people are probably, by the way, well, they're probably doing the hardest job.
Yes.
I think having to deal with other people's issues and problems, face to face or on the phone. I mean, that is just hard. And I
Yeah.
will tell you one of the things, because I used to have similar experiences with Sana was talking about with from a hot button perspective. If they didn't do exactly like they were supposed to, I'd, like, how dare you? Like, you're not doing a good job. I would have kind of a short fuse with them. But at some point, I started to reframe my experience with them, which was, and part of it's because I've been in some of these call centers where people work. I think it's a really hard job most of the time. And I think they're sitting in a cube and they're talking to you. And as soon as they hang up with you, there's another caller within seconds. And they're doing this for hours on end. And they're dealing with issues and situations and personalities. And I think these people, to some extent, are superhuman. And on the other hand, I think some of them really do have bad days because of this job. And
Yeah.
what I did to reframe my experiences with them is I literally, when I'm talking to these people, I'm telling myself, this person has a hard job. They're trying to help me, and they've probably been dealing with a lot of challenges throughout the day. And if I can add a little bit of positivity, a little bit of happiness to their session with me, that actually might be the thing that gets them through the day. They're not going to be necessarily perfect. They're doing the best they can, but just recognizing that they're human beings, and they're probably mothers or fathers, or they're definitely, or they're brothers or sisters, but they're definitely sons and daughters. I mean, just reminding myself they're a human being. It's amazing how your experiences with customer service people can be so much different, so much better, so much more peaceful, harmonious, and joyful.
Yes. So make your choice. It may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility to choose and create the reality that you want for your life. So I invite you to come check out our other videos where we go into a little more detail about the practices involved in creating peace, harmony, and joy in your life on the Foundation for Family and Community Healing platform at healingedu.org, and in the companion series that we have, and in our library with the courses that you can do a deeper dive. So, relationship well being is about knowing yourself, and managing others. And if you really want to do that deep dive into these schemas, then check out our new course. It's about embracing the shadow. So, check that out and learn to create the best you and the best life you can.
Strongly encourage you to do it. Sana's classes are great, and you can even get additional support from the Peace, Harmony, Joy Alliance, peaceharmonyjoy.org, and our book, Less Stress, More Joy, the Peace, Harmony, and Joy Approach, which does a lot to help you set a good perspective within, and to have great experiences with people around you.
And keep your eye on their website. Peace, Harmony, Joy Alliance is just going like gangbusters with new offerings. So check it out and participate. Focusing on peace, harmony, and joy in your life will make that your lived reality, your self fulfilling prophecy. So thanks for tuning in.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. Wish you the best.
Thank you for tuning in to the Best You podcast. We hope today's conversation sparked some new ways for you to cultivate your inner peace, connect meaningfully with others, and embrace the joy of living in harmony. Remember, being the best version of yourself isn't a destination. It's a daily practice of growth, reflection, and kindness to yourself and those around you. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd love it for you to subscribe, share it with somebody who'd benefit, and leave a review to help us spread the message of peace and joy. Stay connected, stay inspired, and we'll see you next time on The Best You.